I fled to Germany to build my future, but I realized I can't build it on fake promises.
It's an unexpected reality for many refugees. Spending months in a new home, yet still jobless, culturally isolated and separated from family. In 2015, almost 1 million refugees came to Germany seeking a better life. But now some of them are voluntarily going back to where they came from. About 55,000 refugees left the country in 2016. That's the largest number in more than a decade. In 2015, Germany became the poster child for European hospitality, welcoming hundreds of thousands of refugees, most of them from Syria.
Now I am telling you that if a big continent like Europe, with 500 million inhabitants, can temporarily give refuge to 1 million Syrians, I don't think that's asking too much as a neighbouring region.
I love Merkel. I love you, Merkel.
But last year, anti-refugee sentiment was on the rise, with far-right protesters demonstrating against the open-door policy. And Angela Merkel and her party, the Christian Democratic Union, have come under increasing pressure over what some critics labelled migrant mayhem. In 2016, Germany deported about 24,000 people after their asylum requests were rejected. But that's still less than half of the number of people who chose to leave by themselves.
It's always preferable when people leave the country voluntarily instead of being deported. Deportation is always only the last resort to return asylum seekers to their home country.
And that begs the question, why are they heading back home? Could they have woken from their European dream and decided it's just not worth it? Natalie Pohonen, The Newsmakers.
Okay, to discuss this, I'm joined now by Karl Kopp from Frankfurt. He's the Director of European Affairs at Pro Asyl, an organization that works to protect refugees. He's also a board member of the European Council of Refugees and Exiles. Karl, good to have you on the program once again. So, 55,000 migrants and refugees left Germany voluntarily in 2016. Why?
Yeah, indeed. It's the highest number of the last decade. Most of them are from Western Balkan countries. They had no chance to get a status in Germany. It was a quite hostile environment for them. And then they said it's better to organize my return, otherwise they would deport him, or her. Therefore, we have a quite high number based on frustration, and more than 20,000 people were deported. So they were brought back by force.
Yeah. So we look at some of the nationalities. We have Albanians, Serbs, Kosovars, and others. So is that maybe because the focus is on Syrians and, say, people from Afghanistan and Iraq, that they feel they're not going to get the kind of attention they need and they don't have a strong likelihood of getting their asylum papers accepted?
You're right, but it's quite clear during an asylum procedure, a fair asylum procedure, we have to assess the story of the asylum seeker. So it's even a member of a minority could be politically persecuted and get a status. But the German society and the German politicians are quite hostile, or let's say the German politicians decided to qualify these Western Balkan countries as so-called safe countries of origin. And therefore it's quite difficult for the people to get a fair and decent asylum procedure. Therefore we have very low recognition rates and high deportation rates.
Karl, you get a few $1,000s if you choose to leave, between $3,000 and $4,500, looking at the statistics, depending on how big your family is. That's surely quite a big incentive. It's some decent money, isn't it?
it's an incentive. But on the other hand, it's wise to support people that they can build up a new life in their home countries. And it's also wise to offer them other options to migrate also to Germany to get access to the German labor market. Most of these countries are candidate countries of the EU, so we should give these people, especially the young people of this region, a fair chance to get access to our labor markets, to our universities, and treat them in a decent and fair way.
But what you're saying is against the grain, because it seems to be the case that many Germans, perhaps the majority, disagree with you. Why do they disagree with you?
Okay, this is a very difficult question. Still, it's like this, that the majority of Germans are in favor of refugee reception. So quite open, it's still a quite open-minded environment concerning the civil society. But it's quite clear if we have an ongoing negative debate, sometimes a quite populist debate, against certain groups of refugees, for example, Roma minority, this fuels sentiments, resentments, and this also creates a negative view. And therefore, maybe my view is a little bit a minority approach, but okay, I work in a human rights organization. My job is that these people, everybody gets a fair asylum procedure and not based on prejudice.
In addition to those from the Balkan countries, you also have many Iraqis going back to Iraq, and that's fascinating because Iraq is hardly a very safe country right now. Karl, if I had to interview you at the beginning of 2016 and I had to tell you, Karl Kopp, that 55,000 people, migrants and refugees, would leave Germany in the year 2016, would you have agreed with me that that would mean that Chancellor Angela Merkel's policies have failed?
Merkel's policy has failed, but maybe not because of this. So let's say the amazing aspect was September 2015, yeah, to open the borders, to receive the trapped refugees from Hungary, yeah, via Austria, to create a legal, or let's say in balanced, organized way to open this Balkan route. This was, from the human rights perspective, based on human dignity, a positive gesture. But later, how the German government and the German authority managed the reception of these new arrivals, there were failures. And now, after Cologne, after the Berlin attack, the whole policy of, let's say, more open-minded approach is stopped. We have now a priority: deportation, send people back, block them at the border, create new camps, create new detention facilities, and so on. So now Merkel is more in line with the coalition of the unwilling in Europe. That's a key problem. Europe as a whole, the EU, created a mess during this so-called refugee crisis. It was never a refugee crisis in Europe. It's a refugee crisis outside Europe, also in Turkey, and in the key countries of refugee reception. But the European Union was not able to cope together in a spirit of solidarity and humanity. And therefore, let's say the last candidates who were in favor of these European values, like Germany, Sweden, and others, get more and more hostile and more restrictive. The victims of this policy are refugees.
Right. Karl, always great to hear your perspective. Thanks so much for coming on the Newsmakers. Hope to have you on the program again.
Thank you. All the best for you.
Bye-bye.